I am Asawari Bapat. I'm a clinical pathologist and a hospital healthcare management consultant based in Dubai and in UAE. I would like to speak on convalescent plasma or serum therapy and regulatory guidelines. Currently, there are no vaccines, monoclonal antibodies, or drugs available for COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 as it appears to be a new human pathogen. Before we delve deeper, let's talk about plasma and serum. Plasma is the liquid part of the blood and contains blood clotting agent fibrinogen. Serum does not. It can be obtained before the coagulation of the blood, but the serum is obtained after clotting of the blood. Plasma needs anticoagulant. Serum does not need an anticoagulant. What is a convalescent plasma or serum therapy? Convalescent plasma or serum therapy is passive antibody therapy. Plasma serum is collected from people who have been treated and have high titers of antibodies which are present in these healed patients. The negative for the active disease. Therapy is the administration of plasma or serum from a donor with presence of the antibodies against the pathogen to a susceptible or a high-risk individual or a patient, and for preventing or treating an infectious disease due to that pathogen. What is the aim of convalescent plasma or serum therapy? It aims at using the antibodies from the recovered COVID-19 patient to treat those critically affected by the virus, and there are around 50 active trials worldwide. It's an option for prevention and treatment of COVID-19 disease. It's rapidly available for people who have recovered and can donate immunoglobulin containing plasma or serum. Convalescent plasma or serum antibodies have the specific ability of fighting SARS-CoV-2, and after administration will begin targeting and fighting the novel virus in the second patient. We can see a hero donating COVID-19. What is the rationale behind its use? Therapy is akin to passive immunization. This passive antibody therapy has been used since the 1890s to a wide-ranging diseases such as Ebola, H1N1 flu, polio, and recently SARS. It holds the promise of keeping the virus at bay until a vaccine has been developed, and the current estimates are it would take up to 2021 to really come up with a vaccine. And during the SARS outbreak in 2002-2003, an 80% trial of convalescent serum in Hong Kong found that people treated with it within 2 weeks of showing symptoms had a higher chance of being discharged from hospital than those who weren't treated with it or who were treated later. We can see here in the schematic of the use of convalescent serum for COVID-19. An individual after his recovery of COVID-19 has blood drawn and screened for virus-neutralizing antibodies. The plasma or serum from these individuals with high titers of antibodies can then be administered in a prophylactic manner or as a therapy. Convalescent plasma or serum can be used in individuals with clinical disease to reduce symptoms and mortality. The adverse effects of plasma or serum are similar to many of the transfusions. Immunologic complications can be immediate or delayed. It includes hemolytic transfusion, febrile non-hemolytic reactions, allergic reactions, anaphylactoid or anaphylactic reactions, trali, purpura, etc. Adverse effects, the non-immunological complications could be transmission of the actual disease or an infectious disease, bacterial sepsis, TACO, hypothermia, and metabolic complications. The milestones that are important for us to look at today are China was the first to use the therapy for the severe COVID patients. Johns Hopkins in the US spearheaded the use of a convalescent serum therapy as a potential COVID-19 treatment. On March 24th, the US FDA began allowing researchers to request emergency authorization for its use. Under an FDA expanded access program, many US hospitals are now following suit. China. The important therapy trials that we have seen is from 5 critically ill patients with COVID-19 with convalescent plasma reported by Shen. 5 patients were treated with 400 ml of CP, and there was an immediate response in all patients. All recovered and discharged. Effectiveness of convalescent plasma therapy in severe COVID-19 patients, published by Kaidwan, with patients from 10 patients who were treated, one dose of 200 ml of CP, the neutralizing antibodies led to disappearance of viremia in 7 days. Radiological examination showed varying degrees of absorption of lung lesions within 7 days. These results indicate that convalescent plasma and serum can serve as a promising rescue option for severe COVID-19. Clinical trial from Johns Hopkins have been very, very crucial for all of us. The convalescent sera option for containing COVID-19 was published by Arturo Pasadevil and Lise Ann Perovsky and led to formation of many of the regulations that we are going to see today. US FDA provided with a guidance to provide recommendations to healthcare providers and investigators on the administration and study of investigational convalescent plasma. It is collected from individuals who have recovered from COVID-19 during the public health emergency as an experimental investigation therapy. The guidance provides recommendation on the following pathways for use of investigational COVID-19 CP: patient eligibility, collection of COVID-19 convalescent plasma, which includes donor eligibility, qualifications, labeling, and record keeping. The investigation or experimental use. Clinical trials are currently being used under the investigational use IND or INDE in US. Single patient use or expanded use. Single patient use is for single patients with serious patients, and expanded access can be for hospitals for many patients that they are treating. Experimental under an ethics committee or investigation review board by the global regulatory authorities, and many of the countries are currently availing this mode. In UAE, it is under the clinical trial, which have been approved by MOHAP and DHA. In India, it's DCGI and ICMR, and in Europe, European Commission has provided European guidance to treat these patients with convalescent plasma, and in UK, NHS have their own guidance. In UAE, the convalescent plasma or serum is being used in SKMC, Cleveland, Dubai, and other Emirates under investigational use or clinical trial. These blood centers are AABB accredited and follow MOHAP and US guidelines. MOHAP and DHA have both provided guidance, including the treatment protocols to be followed. Patient eligibility is very critical. Lab-confirmed COVID-19 is required. It has been found to be most useful in the first 14 days or 2 weeks of onset of disease before the disease progresses further. Severe or immediately life-threatening COVID-19, for example, severe disease, life-threatening disease. Age group 17 to 65. Most critical is the ABO compatibility and informed consent, which is provided by the patient or the healthcare proxy. The donor eligibility is collected from an eligible donor. The eligibility requirements should be followed according to your country, and testing for relevant transfusion-transmitted infections such as HIV-1, 2, HPV, HCV, HTLV, and many other diseases according to your guidances. It's very important that we have an evidence of COVID-19 documented by a lab test, either by a diagnostic test, example, a nasopharyngeal swab at the time of illness, or a positive serological test for SARS-CoV-2 antibodies after recovery if prior diagnostic testing was not performed at the time COVID-19 was suspected. Either one of the following should be followed: complete resolution of clinical symptoms at least 28 days prior to donation, or a complete resolution of symptoms and a negative RT-PCR test at least 14 days prior to donation, and negative results for COVID-19 either from one of the swab specimens or for the molecular diagnostic testing for blood. SARS-CoV-2 neutralizing antibody titers is a very important point to be addressed. FDA recommends the neutralizing antibody titers of at least 1:160 or a titer of 1:80 may be considered acceptable, although some of the earlier publications had very high titers. When measurement of neutralizing antibody titers is not available, consider storing at -190 or -80 degrees Celsius. Retention sample from the convalescent plasma donation for determining antibody titers at a later state. Labeling is very, very important. And according to FDA guidance, we should always label it as caution, new drug limited by federal or US law to investigational use. In addition, some of the other labeling requirements may apply. For minimum, we should always write uniform container label for COVID-19 convalescent plasma. We could use the ISBT format or something similar to what your country or state accepts. The manufacturing process used should be mentioned, the expiration date on the plasma, and the type of storage should be mentioned on the label. Record keeping is very, very critical because all the details that are there in regards to collection, processing, testing, storing, and distribution should be kept at the facility which is processing the sample, collecting the sample, and administration of the samples. And then you can always go back and look into it of what worked and what you could have done to modify or improvise your treatment. Thank you very much. Look for the helpers and please help everybody. Stay safe. Thank you.